Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll explore what the Boogeyman is. One of the most terrifying, unsettling, and chilling beings in contemporary horror cinema and literature is the Boogeyman. This macabre entity lurks in the shadows, feeding on fear and attacking vulnerable families after the tragic loss of a loved one. Its ultimate goal is to eliminate every member of the family, but before that, it enjoys torturing them both physically and psychologically. This terrifying being is the central antagonist in the 2023 film The Boogeyman, based on a short story by the renowned writer Stephen King. Due to its mysterious nature, its power, and its terrifying design, this monster has quickly become one of the most feared creatures among horror fans. That's why in this video, I will explain in detail the history and origins of the Boogeyman. To do that, I'll first give you a summary of its story in the movie. Then I'll talk about its physical appearance, personality, and its incredible known abilities and weaknesses. The story begins with Will Harper, a therapist who has just lost his wife in a car accident. And although his job is to help others deal with pain, he himself doesn't feel ready to talk about it with his daughters, Sadie and Sawyer. Instead, he buries himself in his work, letting another specialist take over the task of supporting them through the process. But this is where things start to get strange. Sawyer, the youngest, begins to notice a presence in her room. Something is hiding in the shadows, lurking from the closet and under the bed. However, her father and sister believe it's just a product of trauma, until everything spirals out of control. At the same time, in the same town, another family has experienced something terrifying. The Billings have lost their daughters under inexplicable circumstances. Lester Billings, the father, bursts into Will's office, desperate, claiming that a dark entity had chased them down until it killed them. Sounds crazy, right? Will thinks so too. And although he tries to help him, he leaves him alone for a moment. A grave mistake, because right at that moment, the Boogeyman manifests and brutally kills him. From here, the nightmare begins for the Harper family. Sawyer is the first to be stalked. The creature hides in the darkness, breaks her nightlight, and deceives her by mimicking her sister's voice. But when Sadie starts noticing strange things, like black stains around the house and inexplicable events, she realizes that her sister was right all along. One of the most shocking moments occurs when Sadie tries to help Sawyer remove a loose tooth using a string tied to the closet door. Just before pulling, the door slams shut violently, brutally ripping the tooth out. But the worst part is that the creature takes it, as if claiming it for itself. Things only get worse. During a session with her therapist, Sawyer is terrified to the point of wetting herself when the entity appears on the ceiling. And although no one believes her at first, Sadie finally witnesses the creature with her own eyes. Now she knows the Boogeyman is real, and if she doesn't figure out how to stop it, her family could be the next to fall. This is where the story takes an even darker turn. Sadie, desperate to find answers, searches the internet about the Billings family and discovers the tragic story of their daughters. With that information in hand, she decides to visit their old house, where she meets Rita, Lester's widow. There, Rita reveals everything she has discovered about the entity known as the Boogeyman, but the conversation is interrupted when the creature manifests right behind Sadie. Without a second thought, Rita grabs her shotgun and shoots, causing the young girl to flee in terror. Meanwhile, at the Harper house, a strange dark substance begins to spread across the walls, and the entity's attacks become more intense. During a sleepover, Sadie's friends decide to play a prank and lock her in the same closet where Lester Billings died. What seemed like a simple prank turns into a real nightmare when the Boogeyman appears and tries to capture her. In the end, they manage to get her out, but the damage is already done. Sadie's fear grows, and the tension with her friends and father becomes unbearable. As if that wasn't enough, the creature attacks again. In a moment of total darkness, Sawyer is brutally thrown against a television, knocking her unconscious. Her father and sister, desperate, immediately take her to the hospital. Soon after, Sadie receives a call from Rita. She believes she has found a way to destroy the boogeyman and asks Sadie to come to her house. Since her father still doesn't believe her, the young girl decides to go alone. But when she arrives, she realizes that Rita has been planning something very different. She pins Sadie against a wall and uses her as bait to lure the creature. Everything was set up: shotgun, explosives, a deadly trap. And for a moment, it seems like the plan works. The boogeyman takes a direct shot and falls to the ground. But this is where things get even more intense. Just as Rita approaches to ensure the monster is dead, it suddenly rises and utterly destroys her. Sadie barely manages to escape and takes refuge in the light. When she returns home, she finds her father and Sawyer back from the hospital. But the nightmare isn't over. The boogeyman was waiting for them. Will is dragged to the basement, and Sawyer hides in a closet, surrounded by flashlights and Christmas lights. This is where the story reaches its critical point. Sadie and Sawyer, determined to save their father, go down to the basement and confront the creature. In a moment of ingenuity, Sadie improvises a flamethrower with spray and a lighter, managing to partially burn the monster. But the boogeyman doesn't fall so easily. Just as it seems like it has regained its strength and is about to attack again, Will intervenes to give his daughters one last chance. And here is where everything changes. Sawyer soaks the creature with flammable liquid, and Sadie sets it on fire, unleashing hell that consumes it completely. With it, the darkness that had invaded their home disappears. It would seem like everything is over. But in the final scene, the family attends a session with therapist Weller. Just as they are about to leave, Sadie hears her name whispered. She returns to the office and realizes that the room is empty. The therapist appears and asks if she forgot something. And at that moment, she understands the boogeyman is still there, maybe weakened, but still lurking in the shadows. And well, now that we've thoroughly covered its story, I want to talk to you about the physical appearance of the boogeyman, what we know about its personality and behavior, and explain its incredible abilities and how to survive and defeat these creatures. The origins of the boogeyman remain a mystery, but according to what is mentioned in the movie, it is an ancient entity that has been haunting humanity since prehistoric times, ever since humans stopped being nomads. This creature not only feeds on fear, but enjoys playing with its prey, deceiving them by mimicking the voices of people they know before finally consuming them. According to what is mentioned in the story, fire has been one of humanity's main tools to defend itself against this entity since ancient times. The boogeyman has a grim and grotesque appearance. Its body is thin and deformed, with pale, wrinkled skin that appears to be covered in scars. Its limbs are long and slender, with elongated fingers that seem designed to climb walls or hide in tight spaces like closets. In its presence, the sense of darkness intensifies as its figure appears to blur and merge with the shadow, making it difficult to see clearly, adding to its terrifying nature, sometimes appearing black or even reddish. Its torso, extremely thin, reveals its ribs, accentuating its cadaverous look. It has no hair, and its eyes are small and white, sunken into deep sockets. And here's the most disturbing part: its mouth. It's not a normal mouth. It's made up of several human hands intertwined. When it opens to feed, these hands emerge, revealing a human skull covered in exposed muscle. What really shocks you is the expression on this face hidden inside its mouth. Neutral, almost indifferent, as if the horror it represents is something entirely natural to it. The boogeyman is a cunning and manipulative creature that feeds on human fear. Its behavior is centered around stalking and terrorizing its victims during moments of vulnerability, such as when they are alone or sleeping. It hides in the shadows, allowing it to observe and wait for the perfect moment to strike. Its ability to imitate human voices is one of its most unsettling methods. It can mimic the voices of loved ones, such as a mother or father, making it even harder for people to distinguish between what's real and what isn't. When it feels threatened or discovered, the boogeyman tends to become more aggressive, using the darkness to its advantage, moving quickly and unseen. It also seems to have a connection with darkness itself, needing it to move and attack without being detected. When light enters its space, its presence is diminished, but in the shadows, it becomes an almost invincible being. The boogeyman doesn't just attack physically, it also plays with the minds of its victims, sowing chaos and fear in their surroundings, making them doubt what they see or hear. At times, it shows itself as a vulnerable figure, like when it hides under the bed or in a closet, and at other times, it becomes a destructive force, creating confusion and terror around it. Its abilities make it a formidable predator. It is incredibly strong, capable of throwing an adult man as if nothing and tearing him apart with ease. Its speed is superhuman, allowing it to stalk and ambush its victims before they can react. One of its most terrifying abilities is its voice mimicry, which it uses to deceive and lure its targets. But what truly makes it unsettling is its connection with darkness. It can move through shadows, manifesting and disappearing into them at will. Not only that, but it can influence its environment, extinguishing lights, spreading mold in the areas it infests, creating an oppressive atmosphere around it. But there's something it can't control: fire. It's as if fire represents the limit of its domain. Now, while it is incredibly powerful, the boogeyman is not invincible. Light weakens it, preventing it from manifesting in well-lit spaces. And although it has the ability to extinguish certain light sources, it cannot do the same with fire. It is also vulnerable to physical damage, which suggests it's not completely immortal. However, there are hints that it may regenerate, which would explain why it keeps coming back after being injured. To defeat the boogeyman, the key lies in its weakness to light and its need for darkness to move and attack. The best way to fight it is to illuminate your surroundings. Use bright lights, flashlights, or even fire, as these elements seem to be able to dissipate its form or minimize its power. Always keep the lights on in the rooms and hallways you are in. Make sure there are no dark places where the boogeyman can hide, such as closets, under the bed, or in dark corners. If possible, place light sources in those areas or block those places with large, heavy objects to prevent the creature from hiding there. It's also important to block doors and windows with furniture or other objects to prevent it from entering the rooms. These types of creatures tend to attack when you feel most vulnerable, so keeping the entrances secure can give you time to react. If you hear a voice that seems suspicious or unusual, don't go toward it, especially if it comes from dark or enclosed spaces. Don't follow the call without thinking, as it could be a trap. While fear is its main source of power, facing the boogeyman with determination and courage can weaken it. In extreme moments of desperation, acting quickly and without hesitation could give you an advantage because the creature feeds on indecision and terror. Finally, if you have access to a lighter, candles, or any source of fire, use them to attack or keep it away. Fire can weaken its power and keep it at a distance. By following these strategies, you may increase your chances of defeating the boogeyman, but always remember that its main strength lies in darkness, so the key will be to maintain light and control over the environment. And that's all we know so far about the entity known as the boogeyman. I honestly didn't think it would be such a complex monster when I first saw it, but the more I researched, the more terrifying and malevolent it seemed. It reminded me a bit of the Wendigo because of the way it imitates human voices. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you already know about the Boogeyman? Do you think a creature as terrifying and sinister as this could really exist? And finally, if you were to encounter this being in the night, what would you do? Share your answers to these questions and your general opinion on the Boogeyman. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, share it to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of my new videos.